A quick note before we get into the episode. Oversharing is a podcast for entertainment purposes only. It is not a medical podcast and does not constitute medical or psychological advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or mental health professional. All right, let's do some intentions. Hi, Joan and Dr. Naomi. Thank you for all the help and support you provide to your listeners. This is my first time writing in. I'm hoping to get some advice or help with an intention for selling my home. I am in my early 30s and purchased my home on my own in early 2023. This was my most proud achievement as I was able to successfully buy in a challenging market and really take on a sense of independence when I needed it most. It helped me finally move on from a difficult to end relationship, and it was a sweet bonding experience for my mom and me as she came with me to all the showings. Since then, I have met my now partner and we are taking next steps, which include consolidating. We'd like to get married reasonably soon and potentially have children, but we both own our own homes, and it has been difficult to save any money for these future endeavors with 2 mortgages. After mulling over our options, it was decided that the best decision for us was to sell my home. My partner is incredibly supportive and has been a huge help with renovating and getting the home prepared, not to mention very emotionally supportive. We've been living together full time for a few months now while getting my house ready, and it has been going great. I'm so excited to take next steps, and I feel so lucky to have a partner as wonderful as him. But going through the motions of getting ready to sell has me overwhelmed with a sense of grief. I find myself crying a lot when I think about leaving my first home behind me. I want to be happy and excited about starting my future with someone I love so much, but I feel like I'm losing a very important part of my life and giving up an achievement I worked so hard for, especially only 2 to 3 years later. I'm so proud of my home, and being here helped me get through some challenging times. I almost feel a sense of betrayal leaving this home and like I snubbed my past self who wanted nothing more than to have her own space. I'd love an intention to help get me through these feelings of sadness and grief while simultaneously feeling excited about preparing for a future I've always wanted. Thank you so much for reading and listening. A homesick batch.
I really like this question. And I think the form that it's taking for this listener is in this home that she bought for herself. But I think this can happen as part of the transition from somebody who embraced an independent, resilient, single life, then meeting a partner and kind of feeling a little bit conflicted about how to integrate that prior self that was independent and empowered on their own and created this whole, independent life, identity, independently, how to now integrate that with a partner and sharing in whatever it is. Here it's a home. It could just be, where to live or finances or space, bathroom or just decisions that you have to make together, time spent, whose family are you spending time with, like, where are you vacationing, all the things where you're like, I liked this independent life that I had and I felt really good about it. And I do think this can happen too when someone's single for a long time and maybe they go through a breakup, like she said, and they're really sad and feel needy and dependent. And then they're like, I figured it out, like how to be happy on my own.
Right.
And now you're happy with someone else and it feels like,
Right. Totally. I think so much of this is like identity wrapped up in like almost like it sounds like she needed to tell herself that she was like this or like, and not that that's not true, but she needed to sort of like build this story of herself as like this independent person who like can be happy on their own. And now maybe there's like a cognitive dissonance of like, okay, like I found someone and now I'm just like selling the home that I was so proud of and so excited about and made, maybe a bigger part of my identity. I had that a little bit when I left my studio apartment in the city. I remember not to this extent. I mean, I didn't own it. So maybe there was like a little bit, and I didn't go through a breakup when I got it, but I remember feeling like I really loved this apartment and I loved that like it was like my only studio that I like did myself, and like the rent I remember it was like a little higher than I wanted to pay, and it was like a 2-year lease, and I remember being so scared to get it, and then I got it and I like loved it. And there was like a little bit of a sadness when you're like, also like it seems like this relationship is serious. It's probably like a little bit of a commitment thing. Like you're about to like do all of the trappings of a coupled lifestyle, and it's a little final. It feels like a little like, I remember thinking like, is this the last time that I'll ever live alone?
Right. Yeah, it's a huge transition. And I do think again that the resilience piece, and like she had a breakup that sounds like that was difficult, and she found her resilience in assuming working hard at a career where she could save up enough money to buy her own home at a relatively young age, and then feeling like now my identity is maybe going to shift into wife and mother. She talks about like they talk about having kids, and I,
And she's
it's
moving into
hard,
his place. Like, I think
right?
like, and maybe even him helping you with this thing is like, oh, like there goes like all of my, and now I'm like tethered.
Yes, yeah, moving into his place. I agree. I definitely can validate this. I have patients sometimes that are like single and they're struggling and they're kind of doing the work of like, I want to be okay alone. Like, I want to have a life that I love, that's mine, that's independent. And even if they don't get there, like this listener sounds like she got there and she was happy and doing it and thriving. Even when I have patients that don't get there and then they meet someone, there sometimes is this feeling of like, and then they're happy.
Right.
There's a feeling of like, I didn't want it to come from someone else.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to get there by myself,
Right.
and almost like feeling guilty or shameful that like, oh, well, now I'm happy because I'm in a relationship.
Right. Because I have a boyfriend. I
Yeah.
totally feel that. But I mean, here's the other thing to remember. Like, she could have had a very happy life before, but clearly she wanted something else from it, or she wouldn't be dating this guy.
Right.
Like, if she truly, like, absolutely was in love with the single life, I don't think she would be in this serious relationship or would have gotten into it. So I think that like that's something she needs to remember. And maybe that's part of your intention is like that is something she clearly did really want because she's doing that. And she
Right.
wouldn't have done it if she didn't want to do it.
Totally. And also, and this was kind of where I focused the intention was like, you don't have to lose any of that because you're in a relationship. Like you still did that. Like that was a season of your life where you cultivated, and I keep using the word resilience because she says it was like after a breakup, and this was her way of kind of like gaining back power over her experience and her life by working and doing something and buying this home that she then decorated. And it's like, it really is an example of like, she could have sat there and wallowed and been like, I need to focus on like finding someone else. But she focused on something that she had total control over, which was like
Right.
earning money and buying a home that didn't depend on anyone else. And I think she can bring that's still with her. She still did that. She still built that strength of character that isn't gone just because the house is gone. Like it's not in the house, it's in her.
Right.
This resilience that she has. Like the house was the object of her resilience, but the resilience lives within her, and the independence and the strength and all the things that house represents for her.
Agreed.
Yeah. So the intention that I wrote for you to think about, and maybe we could tweak it to add in like, and I, there's something beneficial, like I'm looking forward and excited to a life in partnership. It kind of includes that.
Right.
The resilience and independence I found during that time is not lost. I will use it to build the foundation of a healthy life in partnership. So, the best partnerships are the ones where you have your own stuff, you have your own independence, you have your own empowerment, whereas you're not going to be like just totally dependent on the whims of his moods and if he feels more loving today or less loving today, or
Right.
you're going to be like, okay, he can be in a bad mood and like maybe not kiss me when I walk in the door. And I'm not going to like
Fall
have a fit
apart.
over it because
Yeah.
I know that I have my own stuff that doesn't involve him.
Totally. And you probably won't become like the girl in the last email who, in the Betches' email, who didn't have any friends because she spent all her time with her boyfriend.
Yes, totally. I really do think that like having this balanced life where you're making time for your career and you're making time for your friends and you're also enjoying being in partnership, and all of it is within you. None of this is within the house or even that particular friend or that particular partner. It's all in you and the capacity to kind of um, be all of these things and enhance your life in many different ways. So yeah, I'm happy for you. I think, and it will be a grief process. You can go in there and cry and feel sad and, more in the loss of that place that you probably put a lot of work into, but the symbolism of it is, I think, what you're really feeling.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right, let's play some triggers.
Let's do it.
Want to read our first one?
I will read the first one here. Love the pod. I'm a day one listener and can't get enough of you two. I have a situation that I'd love to get your take on. I somewhat recently became friends with a neighbor. We're similar in age, both married with dogs, seem to have a similar style and values, and I'm a new mom while she's pregnant. We've gone for a few walks together around the neighborhood and follow each other on Instagram. I'm writing in about something she posted to her Instagram story that for some reason I can't stop thinking about. It's a repost of something Miss Rachel recently posted that more or less states not to ask people if they want to start a family or have more kids because they could be grieving a miscarriage. I do know that she had 2 miscarriages before her current successful 3rd trimester pregnancy because she told me this the first time we went for a walk. I tend to be an open book and have an ADHD style of blunt honesty, so I usually skip the polite small talk when getting to know someone and ask real questions about their life, while also being vulnerable and sharing, probably oversharing, about my own life. When I saw this Instagram story, I was surprised. I feel like I've definitely asked my friends or acquaintances, like women I've taken a few workout classes with, if they have or are planning to start a family. As a new mom, I'm pretty deep in the motherhood discourse and spend a lot of my time and energy thinking and talking about motherhood and family. If I ask someone this question, it's to get to know them better and bond with them. And I think it's pretty basic information to share. When I clicked on the Instagram story, I realized quite a few of my friends had liked it and got me thinking, am I in the wrong here? What is our responsibility for not triggering others by asking basic questions versus their own responsibility for regulating their emotions and being able to answer basic questions about their life to get to know someone better? How do we know which questions are off limits and which we can ask? I see a lot of posts like this on Instagram these days. I understand they're raising awareness about issues we might not realize others are going through. But to be honest, it makes me socially anxious and worried that I will offend someone when I'm trying to get to know them. Thanks for your help. To ask or not to ask?
Thought this was a very interesting question. It seems like she's triggered by seeing the story that other people are triggered
Right.
by this question,
Yes.
which is funny. I think this topic is a little more like nuanced than like both the ways that she's presenting it as like ask or don't ask.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree with her that I think that do you want children? Do you want more children? Do you have like is a basic question to ask, is a like basic information to share. I don't think that's basic information. I think it actually involves a lot of nuance for a lot of people.
Right.
Even if they're not having miscarriages, I think do you want a third kid is like a kind of a loaded question that a lot of people have like vulnerable and intimate thoughts about. So I don't agree with her that like you should ask everyone at your workout class
Right.
what their status is on their fertility, and that's like something everyone's entitled to know. Do I see how this could come up in a conversation when you're getting to know someone and it not be like offensive or rude? Yes. Also, I can also see like where that would it could feel like a natural question to ask when you're on that topic talking with someone. So I don't think it's like super black and white or like don't ever ask anyone if they're going to have more kids or if they want kids or anything like that. But also it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be you're entitled to that information for anyone or you should ask anyone you just met that, especially out of context.
Right. Yeah. And I get it with like the pregnant friend. I think asking like, do you want more kids doesn't feel like an invasive question. I do get your perspective of like, maybe that's not like a first or second time meeting question because of the fact that it is very loaded for a lot of people. But I do, and she probably wrote in here knowing like perhaps what at least my take might be on this, which is
Mhm.
I do think it is interesting to think about like maybe it is someone's responsibility to just say, I don't know, or I don't really want to talk about that, or,
Right.
actually, that's a pretty loaded question for me. I'd rather not discuss it, or something where you're just like, do we all walk? And she said she's seen a lot of, posts like this about, and I talk about it like, don't talk about someone's body shape, or like, don't, there's certain things that, you feel like should be off limits. And it is very nuanced in terms of what's off limits. But I do think we generally, I think as a population, need to be able to take more responsibility for our own emotions and our own triggers. I would say that's kind of what therapy does. It makes you like aware that this is my sensitivity. I've talked it out with my therapist many times. I know this is like my issue and I'm very comfortable with it.
Right.
So I'm not
Yeah.
constantly getting my like sensitive, don't touch me wounds touched that I can tolerate. Even if you don't want to talk about it in that moment, that's fine to just be able to say, I don't really want to talk about that, or, I'm sorry, that's loaded for me, or, I actually don't know the answer to that. Something where you're like going to own the reality of it for yourself.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I think there is some, like, you wouldn't go around asking everyone you just met how much they weigh,
Right. Or how much money
right?
they make, or
Yeah, or
like,
how much, right. Yeah, like, why I'm kinda like that those are also equally, I think, personal, not maybe not equally, but it could be maybe more personal for some people and less personal for other people than questions about this. I think you see a lot of this also from, like, influencers or people online who have a public life and maybe are like, you have like random commenters or random people online who are like speculating or asking or feel like it's a, it's their business or their, right to know information about you. And maybe that extends to just like everyday people too, where it's like, yeah, I do think there's certain topics that are sort of universally accepted as like a little bit more sensitive, like the weight or how much money do
right,
you make? Or and like, I mean,
right,
there are some people, we've gotten different emails about that, people writing in where it's like, yes, sometimes someone like is a lot more free and kind of oversharing and asks a lot more questions, and that can be fine for them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that like someone else could see that as rude. Like, do you ever anyone who's like, "How much does that cost?" Do you ever have
right,
someone who's like asked and someone could say like, "That's just basic information to share," and someone else is like, "No, like there's actually, you know, a little bit of a tact around that." So,
right. And the tact part is hard because I do think that there is a part of it where it's like you're trying to like depends what type of relationship you want. Like I could think of 5 people right now that I am casual acquaintances with that I'm so tactful that our relationship is never going to get any deeper because like we're not having those conversations. Like
right.
even asking someone like, are you close with your parents? Like maybe one of their parents died. Maybe they have a conflicted relationship with their parents. Like, but also like that's real. So I get this listener and I will say this, like I feel her because I like to have real conversations and I also don't like to engage in especially like long periods of months of like surface level
Right.
chit chat with people. And maybe you say the thing, it doesn't feel good to offend anyone, but they might just not want to be your friend now, or they might think you're rude, or you might have triggered them. And now they're not your friend, but maybe your people are the ones that are going to also want to go there and be comfortable with, whatever is going on in their life and be willing and open to share. Maybe after like 2 exercise classes, I could see the point. Maybe that's not where you're at. But if you're looking for deep friendships, you're going to have to go there. I mean, one
Right.
one suggestion is maybe going there in a way where you're like, you share
Mhm.
and then just
I was
leave it
gonna
open.
say that. That
Yeah.
was my suggestion. I think that's like the most respectful way to do something is that's like if you show don't tell. Like if your thing is you don't like small talk, and that's my thing too. I don't really like that either, but I don't think that means you're entitled to everyone else's information at like the vulnerability level that you desire. But
Mm-hmm.
but again, like the best way for you to see that is to you keep sharing if that's something that you're comfortable with and that you like, you keep sharing as much as you want. And then you'll find the other people that you connect with by people who voluntarily share that
Share.
information with
Yeah.
you and seem to connect with you in that way. And like it doesn't mean that everyone has to connect that way or everyone opens up in the same amount of time as you.
Right. Yep. I agree. I certainly don't think that you should sit in shame or feel like you did something wrong. But yeah, maybe a tweak to it is you share and you will find the person that's like looking to share
Right.
in
And
response.
and in the right context. I wouldn't ask that kind of question like in a group setting with like people who just, took a workout class and don't really know each other that well. I think like ask the question when you're having like a thoughtful conversation or an update about your own life.
Right. Or like, how do you feel if you go to a workout class with someone and they're like, oh, I got to run. I got to pick my, 2-year-old up from daycare. And they're like, do you have kids?
I think do you have kids is basic information. That doesn't bother me.
Right.
That doesn't bother. I think do you have
Do you
kids
want,
is different than
or,
do you want kids? Do you want more
right.
kids? Like
Right.
I think asking up like do you have kids is a fact. And yeah, sometimes even in the worst moments of that experience that can feel a little hurtful, but I'm never like I can't believe they asked if I had kids. Like
Right.
I have kids or I don't have kids.
Right.
Um like
Right. Do you want kids is more
right.
nuanced or like,
Do you
yeah.
want kids? Are you thinking of starting a family soon? Are you like, do you want more kids? I think people who have like, who have one kid maybe get asked that question a lot and feel like again, I think there's like a lot that goes into that stuff. I think like more about like what your wants and needs are a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
Do you want
And
would you ask like a single like do you want to get married? Like do you want
right.
to
Yeah.
like
I
I
just
think
think we
there's
would all be better off, less angry, less easily triggered, more self aware. And I get it. We live in this world and people have wounds and we don't want to upset people. But I do think if we could work towards like knowing that that's something that's like a vulnerable spot for you and just being able to own that instead of being like, don't ask me that. I don't like that question because it makes me think about this thing that's upsetting for me. Instead of like, if it's that upsetting for you, you're probably thinking about it at some point anyway, maybe not in that moment, but for people to be like, yeah, she definitely, I felt that pang of, I don't know. I don't know. Like we keep talking about, should we have another one? I feel really overwhelmed with the one that we have right now. And I feel selfish for not wanting another kid. Whatever that chatter is that you're like, I can't go into this with this person. I just met them,
right.
just owning that for yourself of like, I'd rather not talk about that. I don't really know. And then in
Yeah.
your own self, kind of being like, all right, that's coming up again. I can handle
Yeah.
that.
I think it's okay to be a little more aware though too. Like I've gotten into trouble on the other side of it too, and I've told you I've had a single friend that I asked a lot about their dating life,
Right.
and they were like, "I don't really want to talk like, and I don't really want to talk about that. I don't really want you to ask me about that." And you know what? And I'm also like, okay, I could get
Yeah.
that. And like this listener, I'm like, yeah, I'm like that's a passion of mine. I love talking about dating and relationships. It's not
Yes.
like it's almost not about you. It's about me.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I agree. I think like there's to an extent you can be and I think sometimes it feels like it's maybe more on the internet and more as you see people with like a following or something. Like we've talked to many people on baby steps who are like, the commenters are like, "Where's are you are you gonna have another? Are you gonna have a kid? Why haven't you had a kid yet?" Like we're like it
Mhm.
almost feels like strangers. Like I do think you need to have some level of conversation and
Yeah.
intimacy to
Yep.
get into those conversations. They're not most things shouldn't just be asked to anyone and everyone.
Right. Yeah, I get it. And yeah, that I think that's a great tip is just like you share and if they're looking for that type of connection, they will then share in response.
Right.
So,
All right. Good luck. Let's do one more triggered. Let's roll the tape.
Hi, Dr. Bernstein and Jordana. You could probably tell by the timestamp of his voicemail, which is after midnight that I am overthinking a little bit, or maybe you can help me with whether or not this is very triggering, but I was diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis last year, and I had a really big excision surgery, had multiple appointments with my endometriosis specialist / surgeon, healed pretty well with some challenges, of course, from surgery last year in May. It is now August 2025. I've been experiencing some symptoms of endometriosis returning, and I hadn't really heard a lot from my specialist. I know she went on maternity leave. I just happened to Google her, and she moved to Phoenix, and I know for a fact I haven't gotten any memo or anything from the hospital or, the team that she was associated with. And I already have some anxiety issues as well, some abandonment wounds, and I just found this to be very, very triggering. So I want to know your thoughts on a scale of 1 to 10. How triggering do you think that is, that your specialist doctor, for a disorder that, again, stage 4, not fun. Also just found out that you can apparently get that in your face and brain, endometriosis growth. So I'm kind of spiraling a little bit, but I think it's normal for that to happen without any sort of, hey, by the way, your doctor doesn't live in the state anymore and is no longer going to be handling your care. Let me know what you think. Thank you. Bye.
So this was an interesting one. I think like in the past, if I've had a doctor that's moved away, I've gotten like a letter in the mail saying that they're no longer part of the practice.
Yeah.
And I
You're
think you always
supposed
feel
to do that.
right. I feel like I always feel like a little something. Even, I had that with like my OBGYN where it's like they moved to a different state and you're like, that feels like a little bit of like annoying or like the end of an era or something.
Yeah. Or even like, I like this person. They seem like they know me. We grew some kind of a, relationship, healthcare relationship. And now I have to start over and like do a Google search, like find a new doctor that could be anyone. And that just the process of having to find, especially like she's talking about when she has this very, severe condition that's like requires a specialist. And I mean, this reminds me sort of my situation that I had with the, therapist that was just like, okay, I guess we're done here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not really allowed to do that. Like, I think there's a protocol, even as a medical doctor, if you're leaving the state and you're no longer available to your patients, that you have to let them know. And you even have to let them know within a certain period of time of you leaving, that so that they can try to find someone new. Like, let's say she did have like severe symptoms suddenly one day and she calls her doctor to like get in quickly, and they're like, oh yeah, forgot to tell you, she's not here.
Right. Maybe she's still doing telehealth.
Yeah.
And like would be available to you in that way. And maybe that's why. Maybe she's still like seeing, but I feel like that you wouldn't be doing a surgery, obviously, if you don't live in the same state, I would imagine. I could see how this would be. She says it's triggering, and I think I don't think I see it as triggering, but I can see how someone would see it as triggering and she's talking about like abandonment issues or like this feeling of like, did this doctor actually care about me? Is just this practice care about me? Am I just like, are they just making money off of me, or do they actually care about my health? If they cared about I could see the spiraling of like, am I now like in danger because I don't have a doctor? And did this practice who I trusted not even care enough to tell me? Like, I could see this mental spiral that she's going down.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. And I just think because she had this severe case of it. They did a surgery around it. It does feel nice to feel like, okay, if there's a problem, I know who to call.
Right.
Like I've even had almost like, if you have like a dental procedure and you're worried that there's an infection and, you can't get a hold of the dentist, you're like, oh my God, like what if this is the worst case scenario and I have no point of contact here?
Right.
Which
and
is
I had
why
to Google it myself to find
Right.
out that they weren't there. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And now she does need to start a new search for a new doctor and get comfortable with that person. So yeah, I actually I don't think there's, when you have an MD or a PsyD or a PhD, or like you have these licenses, a licensed psychologist, or licensed medical doctor, there's the reason why that is upheld to a different standard than like a Reiki healer who's just going to like rub their hands over your belly or whatever. I mean, there might even be like a licensed Reiki healer. I don't know. And I like no crapping on Reiki. I like it. But like these professional licenses are in part because that the person has had specific training. And they're also in part because you conduct yourself in a professional manner where you're not just like leaving out of the state and not telling anybody, or like saying, hey, I'm just going to end this therapy without any closure or termination session or whatever it is. Like there are licensing boards for a reason, and it's to prevent things like this. I'm pretty sure, I haven't looked it up, but I would venture to guess that there is a protocol for a doctor leaving state that says you have to notify your patients, which is why you've gotten those. Like letters. I remember getting, gotten those letters. Like I remember getting a letter from some doctor that I went to like one time 2 years ago for like one single visit saying like they're leaving. And I'm like, who? Well, who is that? Oh, right. I went to that person that one time.
I mean, I guess would that have made her feel better? She might still feel abandoned, but she might feel at least more considered. I would call and like complain. I mean, maybe they sent it got lost in the mail. I don't know. Like,
I guess that's possible.
I could see there being some sort of reasonable explanation for this, especially if that's like the protocol that people are supposed to follow. Doesn't mean it's not triggering, but yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I disagree that she would feel like if they sent the letter, she might be like, oh, that sucks. Like I have to find someone new. But I don't think it would feel as like they just disappeared, which is why they have these rules in the first place, because this is a normal feeling that someone's like, okay, you're taking care of my health and
I want to feel like I need to rely on you.
Right. Or find someone else that I can rely on if I have a health problem that needs to be addressed. So you don't have to first start like researching doctors if she's experiencing like severe pelvic pain because of her endometriosis. On top of that, now she has to start like searching for someone else, which is why they tell you, so she can line up somebody else so that if she does have a problem, she has like continuity of care.
Okay. Well,
so
validated. I would call the office. I would call the office and be like, what's up with that? See, maybe there is a explanation that might make her feel a little bit less upset or triggered, but
or at least she could vent it out in the right place and be like, this is
yell at the office staff.
Yeah. This didn't make me feel good. And maybe they'll realize like, oh yeah, probably should have made sure we did that.
Agreed. All right. Well, I guess I would rate this pretty high then after this conversation. I don't know. 6?
Yeah, I was going to say 6.
Okay? 6, okay?
5, 6.
Yeah.
I don't want to force your hand. I think what you're saying is like,
my part of me is like, she had the surgery already. It seems like it's like over. Like if this happened, if she's supposed to have the surgery next month or next week or like in the coming, even if it's coming up and they didn't tell her the doctor that she's supposed to use is not there, I could see feeling really like anxious about that and abandoned and like you trusted this practice. But I do feel like because there's nothing necessarily to do in the moment, it sounds like it wouldn't be as triggering, I think, to me, because it would be like there's nothing I immediately really need from this person.
Right. It's more like a what if I needed something than like an I actually need something. And the chances are that she would have like an emergency around this are probably more slim. I get that perspective. Maybe we'll agree on like a 5. I don't think it's a nothing, but I also think she knows now, and she can move on and find someone else to take
Right.
care of her.
All right. Well, we did it. Help some people.
We did it. We helped some people. Keep the updates coming. Love to hear what happens after the fact. If we got it right, even if we got it wrong, still happy to hear about
Your
it. And
takes.
yeah. All right. That's our time.
Great work today.